Welcome to the next session, input and output parameters. Input and output parameters includes a data item and collection both in process and object studio. Data items are different types like number, image, flag, binary, etc. You can check the data type of a data item by opening the data item properties, and in that you will have a data type as an option as showed in the screenshot. You can, instead of flag, you can change it to number, image, binary, a lot more, whatever is required based on the business needs. And collection is like kind of a group of a data item grouped together into a single stage called collection. So you can add multiple rows into it, which will be basically used in terms of iteration or loops wherever we need. So before getting into input and output parameter usage into Blue Prism screen, we have to speak one more concept of handling the input and output parameters. You have a local and global data items. Data items can be restricted as a private in particular page, and also it can be used globally across all pages, both in process and objects. To make those changes as a global or local, by double clicking the data item, you have an option called visibility and initialization at the bottom of the data properties pop-up. Check or uncheck from visibility checkbox based on your needs. If you are unchecking it, which is going to be public one, and if you are checking it, that's going to be private and will be visible only to the particular page, the current page. Initialization row allow you to set the value based on run. So you will have a next checkbox, which is initialization, and it will reset the value whenever the page runs. And if you don't want to reset it, you can uncheck it so that it will keep the value remains as it is. So now next step is like how to create input and output parameters to pass it from one page to other page or from action to action. So data items and collection can be passed as an input parameters or output parameters, as I've already explained. Input can be passed by clicking the start. You will have a start in each and every page because every page should have a start stage. That is a mandatory one. And you might have one more question like even in the certifications, what are the stages which is available in processor object studio which you cannot delete? So start is one of the thing where you cannot delete. You will not be able to delete, but delete you can be, but the end stage you can able to delete. So start, you cannot do any deletion. It will remain same. It will come along with the page whenever you create it. So input, you have to pass input only via start stage. So when you double click on the start stage, you will have an option to add an input. So output parameters the same way you can add it at the end stage. For both input and output, open the respective stages and click add button. You will have an add button in your stage properties, and in that it will ask you to enter the details, which is a store in place, in which data item it's going to get stored and what is the name of it. It will allow you to add name, descriptions, and data type and store in respectively. As I explained, it's going to ask you the corresponding details for each and every section. Anyway, it looks more of a theoretical. Now we are getting into the live session in Blue Prism Object Studio, how to pass the value from start and how to get the value at the end. So here I've created a page which is going to add two numbers. First, I'm going to take a data item. When you take a data item, it will be by default in the name of data one. You can rename it. Just I'm going to rename it as number one. And as we explained already, you have a data type to choose. When you click the drop down, I'm going to choose it as a number because we are going to do addition. You can set initial value if required. It's better to set always initial value as a 0. And you can take the next data item as like number 2. And give this also initial value as 0 because it's not mandated, but if you would have given, then that will be a better one, because sometimes you will have an error saying like you don't have any initial value to get compared. So it's better to give a 0 when it is a number data type. And I'm going to store it in result, which is another number data item. Just give it, even for this you can give 0, or if you don't want you can give it. So recently we have created 3 data item, and now we are going to see the block, because I have explained what is the use of block. So I can put a block for a segregation of the data item, and I can change it to input. So in this way you will come to know what is input, and you can have one more data item type output, sorry, block type as an output, so that this is going to act as an input and this is going to bring you as an output, just to isolate. It's not going to be any logical or event tracing error it's going to give. And now you have a 2 inputs, and that's going to store it in the result. So you can have the visibility and initialization. If you give visibility as, if you keep visibility as unchecked, this data item going to get visible across all the pages. So I'm going to make only the result as visible, and the other 2 data item as a private one, because I don't want this to get exposed to expose anything outside this page. Next we are going to add a calculation stage. So adding that, just add plus sign, so that we are going to add 2 numbers, and that's going to get stored in a result. So connect these 2 stages. Now we have seen how to create a data item and define the data type of a data item, and whether we have to make it local or global, the scope of the variable. And then usage of block, you can segregate input output, so whatever you need, even the stages you can segregate using block. I just want to recall the session which we had earlier. Now coming back to input and output parameter calling, I don't want to have the input right away from here. I want to get the input from some other page. In this case, I'm going to show it in the current object from a different page, but the same logic is going to use even if you use an action stage or whatever it is. So just double click on the start. For input parameter, as explained, you have to go with start. For output parameters, you have to go with end. So input parameters, you have to click start. I've clicked start. And in the start properties, you have a button called add. Click on the add button. So this is the input I'm going to store. This is the place I want the input to get stored, the first input. Input number 1, name maybe. And for the second one, I'm going to the second input I want in the name of input 1. Input number 1 and input number 2 are the 2 inputs, and then the input value should get stored into the respective data item. So when you click OK, you will have the start stage with 2 input parameters, and this input parameter is going to get supplied from different page, but it's going to get flow into this page to do the calculation. And at the end, you're going to pass the result to the same page from where you are calling. That is the basic logic. So this is the page where I'm going to use addition action. So now I'm using this page to call the other page. As I explained in process studio, that's going to be the same logic here as well. Create a reference to an existing page. I'm going to use the existing page because I'm going to do the addition. Just click that. When you click addition, as like that page is getting connected, double click on the action stage, you will have 2 input parameters which is getting asked, because we are looking for an input parameter in this page. So wherever you call the add 2 numbers page, adding of 2 numbers page, you will have 2 input parameters which is mandate one. So we are going to give, or we are going to pass 2 values, which is a data 1 can be like whatever it is. And data 2 also should be a number because we are going to do addition. And I have two numbers now, data 1 and data 2. I have to pass the input place. So put a data 1 into the number 1 input and put data 2 into number 2 input. So once you click OK, now input is passed. So how to take the output? Again, you have to go to the target page and click the end the same way as you add the parameters into a startup. Now you're going to add the parameters into end stage. Click add. You're going to get a result. And that should be in the form of a number because we know the data type of the result. If we add two numbers, of course, it's going to be a number. Then click OK. Going back again to the page. So I'm calling this page which is looking for two input, and that's going to give you the output as well. So double click that. You will have an input with two data where we have already passed it. So going there, you will have an output which is asking for where is the place to store the output result. So it's looking for some place to store it. I'm going to click the store in button. It's going to give you a pop-up showing like the chosen name of this stage conflicts the stage result of adding two number. Please choose the another, which means you have already result data item in the other page, and the scope of the data item is not local, which is a global. So if it is a global, you cannot create it the same name. You have to go for a different name, or you have to change the scope of the existing data item. So in this case, I don't want to change the scope of the data item because we want to see what is a local data item and what is a global data item. So we have used two local and one global. In this case, I'm going to say like result sum as a different data item, and this is going to be local. So there's not going to be a public one. So when I start running, you can see the input of this as already 0, and you should have the result here, and the result from this page should flow to this page using this page reference. So if I step into this, you will have two numbers from that page is getting populated into this page. Adding that, you will have a result getting stored in the output block. And once it completes that, the result value is getting populated into result sum because we are storing the result in result sum. So that is the scope of input and output variables or output data item which we use. The similar way where we used data item, we can use collection if you have chunk of values or if you have group of values. And this is not only for a page reference. Within an object, you can use the same way. If you call a different object also, if you open the action properties, you will have within the action properties, you will have input and output to update it. So that is also the same way where we have used it. So just for your reference, I've added a page reference to call the data item within the object so that it will be easy for you to understand at the beginning stage, and going forward it will be like you will get used to it. And same way you can use a process as well. Even process also can accept input and give the output, which is not going to have any difference in terms of passing in input and output parameters from page reference, actions, and sub process, whatever it is. So that's on the high level of input and output parameter creation and its visibility, which means like scope of the data item, along with that parameter passing within a page reference. So see you on the next session with other details with the object creation.